Before the world knew him as a comedian, a talk show host, or a millionaire with a golden voice, Steve Harvey was simply a man with a dream too big to ignore. He had left everything behind: his job, his comforts, even his bed, in search of a whisper that would tell him he was destined for something more. For weeks, that whisper was the only sound he could trust. Because when the world went silent, when his pockets emptied and his phone stopped ringing, faith became his only companion. In 1989, Steve slept inside a battered 1976 Ford Tempo, the same car that had carried his failures and his future. Every night, under the indifferent stars, he would gaze at the roof of that car and say softly, "God, I know you didn't bring me this far just to leave me here." He didn't pray for money. He didn't ask for fame. He asked for alignment. The feeling that he was still on the right path, even when nothing made sense. Some nights, he cried from exhaustion. Other times, he laughed through the pain, imagining himself on stage, hearing the roar of the crowd in the distance. In those moments, something extraordinary happened. His frequency shifted. He was no longer just a broke man sleeping in a car. He was a vessel, vibrating with faith. He began to speak, move, and feel differently. And as every vibrational master says, the universe doesn't respond to despair. It responds to certainty. Days turned into weeks, and the miracle still hadn't happened. But Steve kept talking to that future version of himself, the one who had already caught up with him. He said, "You're on the right track, man. Hang in there." He visualized himself walking into the studio, shaking hands with the producers, making people laugh. And when he did, his energy soared that he forgot he was hungry. His imagination became his food. This is the first secret of manifestation that most people overlook. You do you and attract what you want. You attract what you feel is real. Steve felt his dream with every cell in his body until the vibration of that sensation became stronger than the noise of the circumstances. One day after, sleeping in that car for 3 long days straight, he received a voicemail. It was a comedy club in New York. Someone had canceled and needed a replacement. The only problem: he was in Florida, with no money for gas and nowhere to stay. Logic told him, "You're not going to make it." But the vibration whispered, "You're already there." He borrowed $25, filled the tank halfway, and drove all night. He told himself, "I'm not performing, I'm entering my destiny." When he arrived, exhausted but radiant, the host introduced him, and for the first time in his life, the room felt him, not as jokes, not as words. Him. His energy. That night changed everything. The crowd erupted. A scout was in the audience. As he left the stage, his phone rang again. New offers, new doors, new beginnings. But if you asked Steve what truly changed his life, he wouldn't say it was that performance. He'd say it was those quiet nights in the car, when faith became frequency and belief became vibration. Because manifestation doesn't begin when the world notices you. It begins when you notice yourself. After that night in New York, something inside Steve changed forever. He realized that the universe hadn't suddenly started listening. It had been listening all along, waiting for him to vibrate at the frequency of the person he was becoming. Every laugh he heard from the audience wasn't just applause. It was confirmation that his vibration had resonated with his destiny. For the first time, his outer world resonated with what his inner world had been transmitting for years, and this realization changed the way he prayed, spoke, and thought. From that day forward, his prayers weren't requests, but declarations. He stopped saying, "Please, God, make it happen," and started saying, "Thank you, God, for what is already on its way." He understood that gratitude wasn't just a feeling, but a frequency. Each time he gave thanks, even for the smallest blessing, he tuned his energy to abundance. Gratitude said to the universe, "I already have what I need," and the universe, ever the perfect mirror, responded in kind. That's why opportunities began flowing faster than ever. But it wasn't luck, it was alignment. The same Steve who once cried in his car now stood before an audience with the same tears, but charged with a new vibration, the frequency of fulfillment. Later, he would say, "I was homeless, but I wasn't hopeless." This phrase wasn't poetic, but spiritually physical. Hope is passive. Faith is vibrational. When asked how he remained penniless, homeless, and without the promise of success, he would smile and reply, "Because I saw it before I had it." He wasn't referring to imagination, but to vibration. He could feel the texture of his dream long before he touched it. Every time he closed his eyes, he wasn't escaping reality. He was building it. And this is what most people misunderstand about manifestation. It's not fantasy, it's frequency management. The mind creates the vision, but emotion sends the signal. And Steve had learned to send a clear, unwavering signal to the universe. "I'm ready." Years later, when he hosted Showtime at the Apollo, he said he could still smell the leather seats of that old Ford Tempo. That car became his first stage, his training ground, his sacred space. There, he practiced the art of emotional calibration, transforming pain into power, fearing to feel and doubt into devotion. He learned that emotion is not weakness, it is energy in motion. And when you learn to harness this current, the universe adapts to your signal. Steve used to say, "The dream is free, but the effort is sold separately." But what he didn't always say was that effort begins within. It is the frequency of action that accompanies the vibration of faith. Because success never begins with a test. It begins with a decision, a silent, sacred agreement with the unseen. Steve Harvey decided that homelessness was temporary, but greatness was eternal. And once that decision took root, reality had no choice but to catch up with him. The world didn't surrender his dream, it matched his vibration. The car that once seemed like a cage became the chrysalis in which his higher self was born. It was at that moment that faith became frequency, and frequency became form. Success didn't come overnight. After that first opportunity in New York, there were months when the phone went dead again. Shows were canceled, and bills piled up. But Steve had already learned the secret code of vibration. But once you visualize the future in your mind, you can't go back to blindness. He felt the energy of purpose, and that feeling became his new compass. Whenever fear tried to whisper, "You're still broke," faith replied, "No, I'm just evolving." This simple shift in vocabulary changed everything. He no longer said, "I want to be successful." He said, "I am success in progress." This phrase transmitted the vibration of inevitability, a frequency the universe couldn't ignore. He began treating his dream like a job long before it paid him. Every morning, he woke up and spoke aloud to the version of himself that had already achieved it. "I know you're there, man," he said, looking at his reflection. "Keep shining. I'm achieving my goals." It wasn't an illusion. It was a dialogue between who he was and who he was becoming. This internal conversation shaped his energy, and energy shapes results. Because manifestation doesn't require seeing the entire staircase. It requires feeling each rung is solid, even before it appears. Steve didn't wait for signs. He became the sign. He began visualizing every detail of his success. The scent of the stage lights, the sound of laughter, the weight of a microphone in his hand. These weren't fantasies. They were rehearsed frequencies. He taught his body and mind what abundance felt like so they could recognize it when it arrived. Each visualization session became an emotional workout, strengthening his alignment with that future version of himself. Over time, the gap between someday and now began to blur. What he practiced internally began to manifest externally. More shows, better audiences, and eventually, TV producers calling him. But even as his career began to take off, Steve never forgot the language of vibration that had driven him out of the car. Before every show, he would close his eyes and whisper, "Thank you." This gratitude was his calibration. It reminded him that everything he experienced had initially been a frequency. The lights, the laughter, the applause. They were echoes of emotions he had once felt silently. He realized that manifestation was never about asking. It was about allowing, and allowing required trust, emotional mastery, and the willingness to act as if the dream had already arrived. That's where the true power began. Because when you live as if it were already yours, the universe rearranges itself to prove you right. Opportunities appear where logic says they shouldn't. People call without ever hearing your name. Doors open without you knocking. It's not luck. It's vibrational alignment. Steve Harvey became the embodiment of this law. He didn't chase success. He became the frequency of success. And that the essence of the law of vibration. The world doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to who you're becoming. Years later, when Steve Harvey stood under the blinding lights of his own television show, he still remembered every night he'd spent in that car. The hunger, the fear, the silence, everything had become sacred because those nights weren't punishment. They were preparation. He used to say that the struggle wasn't meant to break him. It was meant to sharpen him. Each adversity brought a frequency of growth. Each setback was an initiation into gratitude. And now, standing on that stage, surrounded by laughter and applause, he didn't feel proud, but grateful. Grateful that he hadn't given up before his vibration reached his vision. Gratitude had become his spiritual technology. He understood that each thank you was a command to the universe, a signal saying, I can do it. Gratitude dissolves resistance. It takes you from wanting to knowing, from hoping to having. Each time Steve closed his eyes and whispered thank you, his heart and mind fell into perfect coherence, a vibrational harmony that magnetized everything he had prayed for. Because the truth is simple yet profound. Wealth isn't attracted by need, it's attracted by appreciation. When you feel gratitude before you see the results, you accelerate their arrival. This isn't magic, it's energetic mathematics. That's why his story isn't just about a man achieving success. It's about a vibration becoming visible. The laughter, the contracts, the houses, the fame, all were the result of an inner transformation that began with gratitude. Steve's true success wasn't measured by money. It was measured by alignment, because once you align your emotions with abundance, it inevitably finds you. The universe doesn't speak English or numbers, it speaks energy, and gratitude is its highest language. If you've ever wondered how to tune into this same frequency, vibration that takes you from scarcity to flow, from survival to prosperity, there's a way to start today. You can practice the same vibrational precision that turned Steve's car into a classroom of faith. Start with the 7-Day Rapid Money Manifestation Guide, a powerful step-by-step tool designed to align your energy with wealth faster than ever. It's not about chasing money, but about tuning your frequency. You'll learn to calibrate gratitude, intention, and emotion into a single signal so clear the universe can't ignore it. The link is in the description. Because Steve Harvey didn't wait for life to get easier. It became easier for him to align with life. He discovered that when you stop asking for evidence and start vibrating as if it were already a given, reality tilts in your favor. This isn't an illusion. It's a vibrational law. So if you find yourself at a crossroads right now, remember, your dream doesn't wait for permission. It waits for frequency. Gratitude is the path to unlocking it. Today, when Steve Harvey speaks to millions of people, he doesn't speak first of money, but of energy. He says, everything you pray for is already waiting for you. The question is, are you in tune? Because he knows what it means to pray from a place of lack and what it means to give thanks from a place of faith. One frequency repels, the other attracts. That's why he calls gratitude the password to access blessings. The man who once whispered to God in a parked car now whispers to the world. Do you and chase your dream? Align with Italiano, because when your inner world vibrates with certainty, your outer world has no choice but to obey. He learned that manifestation is not an act of creation, but of remembrance. Everything you were meant to have already exists in vibration. The car, the house, the opportunity, they're all waiting for you to feel them as real. That's how Steve went from sleeping in his car to owning several. The universe never gave him anything new. It simply delivered what its energy had already promised. This is the silent miracle of alignment. When you align with the frequency of what you desire, reality rushes in to meet you halfway. So tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine your own version of that hill where Steve used to park. Imagine yourself sitting under the stars, not as someone waiting for a test, but as someone radiating certainty. Feel what it would be like to already have the life you dream of, not someday, but right now. Let gratitude flood your body until your heart vibrates with the vibration of thank you, because that's when reality begins to give way. You don't manifest with words. You manifest often. Now, take a deep breath and tell the universe exactly who you are becoming. Maybe it's a new business, a discovery, a home, or a peace of mind. Say it, feel it, believe it, and then act as if it were already yours. This is the practice that transformed Steve Harvey's experience into divine alignment. You don't need perfect conditions. You just need the courage to believe that your vibration is powerful enough to rewrite your reality. And before this video ends, I want you to do something powerful. In the comments, tell me what you're most grateful for right now, whether it's something big or small, because the moment you name it, you activate it. Let your words carry the energy of faith. So, subscribe and turn on notifications, because in the next story, we'll discover how more extraordinary minds are quietly using these same vibrational laws to effortlessly create success, love, and freedom. Remember, you don't attract what you desire. You attract what you vibrate with. So, raise your frequency, express your gratitude, and let the universe do what it's always been meant to do. Respond to you.